Alright, so we got a bit of news concerning Final Fantasy as a series as a whole. Mainly, we're looking at Final Fantasy 16, quick little update on that, and then we'll get into the bigger news regarding the universe of Final Fantasy 7. So, from Kotaku, we have this article coming out a couple days ago talking about the gameplay that is going to be in Final Fantasy, saying that they're taking steps to uh, help players who don't really like the action gameplay of it. So we're probably going to be looking at something along the lines of the classic mode we saw in Final Fantasy VII Remake that was refined from, I don't remember what it was called in Final Fantasy 15, but where it kind of slows down, you make the decision, and then it kind of acts for you more along the lines of that turn-based gameplay we know and love from Final Fantasy as a whole. Now, here we have something from a previous update from Yoshida saying that he didn't want to show something that was half-baked, and that kind of leads into the reason we haven't gotten any new big updates regarding the game, aside from that early mention a couple months ago about names of the characters and then the world of Final Fantasy 16 being the realms of Valisthea, however they're gonna say it. But I think that that's a really cool thing for Yoshida to say because it deals with some of the, not some, but one of the biggest problems we've had with Square Enix in the past is them announcing games way too early, showing off too many things. You know, we'll have like 10 trailers for a game before it releases because they announce it so early and they're constantly putting stuff out just to keep our interest. And Yoshida seems to be trying to avoid that. And then again, addressing concerns with fans with the mode that will lean more towards the turn-based side and the story efforts aside from just the action gameplay for the fans. And then finally, he makes a point later down here in the article. I think that when you become an adult, you also understand suffering. And so people who have grown up on Final Fantasy also know the real world. But even then, they want to once again enjoy fantasy. They can get something out of it and are able to contemplate. Thinking I'd like to make this a theme for the game. So to me, that says that we are going to see this mature take on the Final Fantasy series. Not necessarily the power of friendship or the usual cliches we see in JRPGs, but actually catering towards the larger side of the fan base that is older. Myself personally, I'm 20 years old, but I know there are plenty that are probably in their 30s, maybe even close to 40s, that want to enjoy a game like Final Fantasy. And hopefully, from what we've seen, even just from the one trailer and the little bits that we have, Final Fantasy is going to deliver on that. And I think that if, from what Yoshida has been saying, from what he has said recently, from what we've seen of Final Fantasy 16, if he can pull this off, he may be new top dog at Square Enix, might dethrone the name Tetsuya Nomura in favor of Yoki Yoshida, good old Yoshi P. But again, quick little update on Final Fantasy 16. But the big news came yesterday with Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, shown off at the State of Play live stream by Sony. And what this is it's basically a PlayStation 5 port of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and with that, you know, you're getting all the usual bells and whistles like graphics updating, new lighting, better textures, load times. They're throwing in a photo mode, so the things you might expect from a port. But aside from that, the bigger news to come out of it is that we will also be getting a DLC episode featuring Yuffie from Final Fantasy VII, a favorite character of many people. And it seems like we will also be getting introduced to this guy right here. His name is Sonon. I'm not sure if he's from the Final Fantasy VII universe or not. I've never heard of him, so I'm guessing he's a brand new character for this universe. And throughout the trailer, you see that they're dealing a lot with Avalanche, but a different faction from our main cast in the game. And if you remember playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake, they make a lot of allusions to that different faction of Avalanche working with Wutai and this greater war that's going on in the world of Final Fantasy VII. So getting to see a little bit on that side and seeing how that kind of plays out alongside, it seems like it goes alongside the story of the original Final Fantasy VII Remake. So that is going to be super cool. Yuffie looks so dope. If you watched my reaction to the trailer, her moveset looks so sick with her ninja star moving around all ninja-like, running on walls, acrobatics, all that good stuff. So I cannot wait for that. Now, interestingly enough, actually I will point out that just like a lot of other PS4 games getting ported to the PS5, if you have Final Fantasy VII Remake for PS4, you can upgrade it for free to the PS5. I guess it's just a downloadable thing. But if not, then there is going to be a physical copy available for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade that will, I'm guessing, include the DLC as well. I hope. I'm not actually entirely sure on that, but they are charging $69.99 on Square Enix's website, so hopefully it'll include the DLC. And the DLC is actually appears to be PS5 exclusive as well. However, if you watched my previous video talking about Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, you know that I talked a lot about Ever Crisis. What is Ever Crisis? A couple months ago, we saw these trademarks coming out for games called Ever Crisis, and then there was one called First Soldier. And if you're not familiar with the way the marketing kind of goes with the Final Fantasy VII universe, is all the spin-offs actually follow a pattern of the alphabet. So it's A, C, B, C, 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 D, C, Advent Children, Before Crisis, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, and then we were getting EC, Ever Crisis, and FS instead of FC, which whatever, I guess. But so Ever Crisis and First Soldier actually got announced yesterday as well, but not at State of Play, just kind of on their own as mobile titles. So a little bit here, but I'll jump over to this first article. Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis will bring the entire FF7 story to your phone. Now, I'm going to play the trailer for you guys just so you can see what it looks like if you haven't, and you'll see where Square Enix could have really had a home run and where they kind of dropped the ball on this one. So let's just play it and see how this goes. This has another possibility for a remake, and then we get to see this, and it looks really nice, really nice. Basically, the original Final Fantasy VII in all its glory, just remastered. Instead of a remake, it's just a remaster, which is what some people were actually kind of hoping for with the original announcement of the remake. And that's what this looks like, right? But as you'll see here, right towards the end, we'll see a little bit of what the gameplay looks like, and it kind of throws things off, right? Because it's not really what you would expect with the original Final Fantasy VII gameplay, turn-based type deal. Just this art style. But I mean, you look at it, it looks like everything's here. The dialogue seems pretty consistent. Cleaned up, nice little chibi characters. Reminiscent of Bravely Default a little bit. Here it comes, we'll see. Guard Scorpion comes down. And it kind of cuts to the 7 remake graphics, which is really, really an odd choice for me. It looks like it's kind of dealing with the turn-based system that we saw in Final Fantasy VII Remake, so I'm confused as to why they didn't just... And then we'll see Zack here. Little nod to Crisis Core. But I'm not sure why they didn't just leave it in that style for the entirety of the game. I think, honestly, thinking back to Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition, if they were to release this game on mobile, right, and then it's coming out episodically, which Square Enix seems to like nowadays. But if they were to release this game on mobile, and then a year later, or after all the parts come out, they release it on something like the Switch, like they did with Pocket Edition, PS4, PC, it would be a smash hit with everybody, including myself, even the people that love the remake as it is now, this would be an awesome updated way to play the original Final Fantasy VII. It's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame that they make that switch kind of for the difference in the story and actual gameplay elements. And also, we can see here chapter structured. It'll be interesting to see how they cut the game based on Pocket Edition of Final Fantasy 15. We know that it obviously wasn't just a not remaster, but more like a demaster of the original game. There was a lot of parts that were cut, just kind of keeping the main story intact. So we'll see how far they go in terms of the depth of storytelling that they go. But it does say that if we go back here in the trailer, right here, so we see Advent Children, Core Crisis, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, and Final Fantasy VII. So all 5 pieces of the compilation will be a part of this. And it'll be interesting too, because something like Advent Children was a whole movie. So how they're going to adapt that into game, yet to be seen. Dirge of Cerberus, that was a on the rails type shooter deal. Crisis Core was an action RPG. Like, before Crisis was a phone game, another phone game, but it was more like a 2D sprite style game. So I'm not writing this off yet. I think it could be really interesting to see how they adapt all of this into one package. It'll be nice to have all of this because in terms of where to play these games, it's all over the place. Like before Crisis, I don't even think you could play that anymore. So that'll be interesting to see. But I do think that from what we've seen, from what this trailer shows us, there's a bit of why did you do that, Square there. But 2022, we'll see, I guess. And then finally, just a quick little thing, because I don't think it's worth that much time, but we do have Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, which I guess is the F part of the compilation. It's a battle royale game. Looks really hectic, really crazy, might be interesting. Again, it's for the phone, so catering to that Japanese market where a lot of people play on their mobile devices. But I guess I'll play the trailer just so you guys can see if you haven't already. But it's basically like soldier training. So this is coming out 2021. There it is. Looks interesting enough, but like I said, it looks very hectic. You know, you got magic, guns, swords, summons are in there. You got random enemy encounters, it looks like. It seems like it can be very, very difficult to get a grasp on everything. Like just looking at that, like I feel like the guy running up against the guy that had Ifrit, I feel like he would just get destroyed, you know? But who knows? Again, first impression trailers, we don't want to make too much judgment. maybe it'll turn out to be kind of fun. I do play Fortnite a lot with my friends, so I can enjoy the battle royale format every now and again. But yeah, that's First Soldier. I'm more interested in Intergrade, obviously, and then Ever Crisis really has my attention because it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, how it progresses, how they adapt the story into one, and if it will come to something like the Switch. I think that they should definitely do that, and probably will. But again, 2022 before this releases, obviously the first part, and then we gotta wait for the other parts to come out, and then actually come to something like this. So, anyways, that is it. Final Fantasy news galore, and I'm here for it. I'm excited. Video games are back. That's definitely a good feeling.